They had faced hurricanes of headlines, storms of speculation, and the cold rain of public judgment. But nothing prepared them for silence. A silence so deep it swallowed whole stadiums. A silence where 90,000 people held their breath, not for a goal, not for a victory, but for two people who simply chose to stop. And in that stopping, they started something that no speech, no royal decree, no amount of money could ever achieve. This is not a story of crowns and castles. This is a story of two hands reaching into a nation's darkest hour and pulling it back toward the light. It was a cold February evening in London, the kind where the dampness seeps through old coats and into bones. The news had broken just hours earlier. A senseless tragedy at a children's hospital in Liverpool. An attack that no one saw coming. 15 families destroyed. 23 children fighting for life. The nation didn't just mourn, it froze. Flags dropped to half-mast without anyone ordering it. Taxi drivers turned off their meters. Pubs poured out drinks onto the pavement in silent tribute. William and Kate were at Kensington Palace when the first reports came through. They had just finished a quiet dinner with their 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. The laughter from the nursery still echoed in the hallway. Kate was wiping jam off Louis's sleeve when a palace aide knocked softly. One look at his face told her everything. William stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the hardwood like a warning sound. He took the tablet from the aide and read the headlines in silence. Then he handed it to Kate. Neither spoke for a full minute. The protocol was clear. The royal family would issue a formal statement of condolences. They would wait for guidance from the government. They would keep calm and carry on. That was the rule. That was the tradition. But William looked at Kate, and Kate looked at the window where rain was now streaking down the glass like tears, and she said something very simple. We can't just type words. That night, they didn't sleep. William paced the long gallery, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking quietly to hospital administrators, to local clergy in Liverpool, to the Prime Minister's office. Kate sat at her desk, writing by hand. Not a speech, not a press release, but a list of names. Every child, every nurse, every parent who had been in that ward when the attack happened. She cross-referenced news reports, called friends of friends, used every quiet connection she had built over 15 years of public service. By 3 a.m., she had 73 names. By 5 a.m., William had arranged a private car. They didn't inform the press. They didn't ask for permission from the royal household. They simply left. No photographers. No police escort. Just a dark sedan and a driver who didn't ask questions. William drove the last hour himself because Kate had fallen asleep against the window, her hand still clutching the handwritten list. He watched the motorway lights flicker across her face and thought about his mother. Diana would have done this. She would have gotten in the car. And for the first time in years, William felt not the weight of the crown, but the simple pull of human duty. They arrived at Alder Hey Children's Hospital at 6:47 a.m., just as the winter sun was trying to break through the clouds. The security guard at the gate almost didn't let them in. He thought they were just another grieving family. Then William rolled down the window, and the guard's face went pale. "Your Royal Highness," he stammered. William shook his head. "Just William," he said. "We're here to help." Inside, the hospital was a war zone of quiet suffering. Parents sat on plastic chairs, their eyes empty, coffee cups gone cold in their hands. Nurses moved like ghosts, their scrubs stained with things they would never unsee. The head of pediatrics, a woman named Dr. Sharma, met them in the corridor. She had been awake for 40 hours. She looked at William and Kate, not with awe, but with exhaustion. "They don't need more statements," she said. "They need someone to hold their hand while they sign the papers no parent should ever sign." Kate nodded. She didn't say, "I understand." She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She just asked, "Where do we start?" For the next 14 hours, William and Kate did nothing that would make a headline. They didn't give interviews. They didn't pose for photos. William sat in a small family consultation room with a father named Mark, whose 6-year-old daughter had not survived the night. Mark couldn't stop shaking. William didn't try to stop him. He just sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched, and when Mark finally broke down, William held him. Not a royal embrace, a human one. He whispered nothing, because there was nothing to whisper. He just stayed. Kate found herself in the playroom, which had been converted into a quiet space for the siblings of the victims. A little boy named Jacob, maybe 7 years old, was sitting alone in the corner, drawing on a piece of scrap paper. His sister was in surgery. He didn't know if she would come out. Kate sat down on the floor next to him, not above him. She didn't introduce herself. She just picked up a blue crayon and started drawing a dog. Jacob looked at her drawing, then at her face. "That's not a very good dog," he said. Kate laughed, a real, tired, broken laugh. "You're right," she said. "Can you show me how?" For the next hour, they drew dogs. Bad dogs. Wobbly dogs. Dogs with 3 legs and 6 ears. And for that 1 hour, Jacob forgot to be afraid. The staff noticed. They noticed that William carried boxes of supplies from the loading dock without asking for thanks. They noticed that Kate made tea for the night nurses, remembering exactly how each one took it. 2 sugars for Brenda, no sugar for Fatima, milk first for Sophie. They noticed that the royal couple didn't check their phones, didn't look at the news, didn't once complain about the hard plastic chairs, or the terrible coffee, or the smell of antiseptic that clung to their clothes. By midnight, they had to leave. The hospital needed to secure the perimeter. The media had finally caught wind, and a small crowd was gathering outside. William and Kate slipped out a side door unnoticed. In the car, they didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. Then, Kate took William's hand and said, "We can't fix this." William nodded. "No," he said, "but we can show them they're not alone." That was the first part, the quiet arrival, the unseen labor, the beginning of something that would, in the days to come, turn a nation's tears into a movement. Part 2, 2,500 words, expandable. 3 days later, the country was still reeling. The official mourning period had been declared. Politicians gave speeches. Celebrities tweeted broken heart emojis. But something felt hollow. The words were right, but the weight was missing. People went through the motions. Candles lit, flowers laid, silence observed, but underneath it all was a creeping numbness. How do you grieve when the grief is too big for your chest? How do you cry when your tears feel useless? William and Kate felt it too. Back at Kensington Palace, surrounded by advisors and protocol officers and well-meaning staff, they felt the numbness creeping in. The palace wanted them to attend a memorial service. The Prime Minister wanted a joint statement. The charity partners wanted to announce a fundraising campaign. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had a plan. But William kept going back to one image. Mark, the father from the consultation room, shaking so hard his teeth chattered. No speech could stop that shaking. No fundraising gala could bring back his daughter. Kate had her own haunting image, Jacob's drawing of a dog with a crooked tail. She had kept it. She didn't know why. She folded it into her pocket and carried it with her everywhere. That piece of paper felt more real than any official document. It was proof that in the middle of the worst moment of a child's life, a simple act of sitting on the floor could matter. On the 4th day, they made a decision that shocked the royal household. They announced that they would not attend the large public memorial. Instead, they would go back to Liverpool. Not for a photo op, not for a ribbon cutting. They would go back to the hospital, and they would stay. Not for hours, for days. The palace advisors were horrified. The security risks, one said. The media scrutiny, another said. The precedent, a third whispered. William looked at them calmly. The precedent, he repeated slowly, is that royals stand with their people when the ground opens up beneath them. That's the only precedent I care about. So they went. This time, they took no aides, no stylists, no public relations team. They packed 2 small bags, jeans, sweaters, comfortable shoes, and drove themselves again. When they arrived at Alderhay, Dr. Sharma was waiting. She looked less exhausted now, but more fragile. The initial shock had worn off, and in its place was the long, grinding weight of reality. "We've had more deaths," she said quietly. 3 more children didn't make it through the night. Kate closed her eyes. William put his hand on Dr. Sharma's shoulder. Then, "We have more work to do," he said. What followed was not glamorous. It was not the stuff of royal biographies. William spent his days in the hospital's basement cafeteria, not eating, but listening. He sat with orderlies, custodians, kitchen staff, the invisible army that keeps a hospital running. They told him things he would never forget. A janitor named Terry showed him a corner of the basement where he had gone to cry after cleaning the emergency room. "I couldn't let the nurses see me," Terry said. "They had it worse. But I had to go somewhere." William asked if he could sit with Terry for a while. They sat in silence for 20 minutes. Then, William said, "I'm going to make sure every hospital in this country has a quiet room for staff. A place where they can break down without being seen." Terry looked at him skeptically. "You can do that?" he asked. William smiled for the first time in days. "I'm going to try." Kate, meanwhile, had found her own mission. The siblings of the victims, the forgotten grievers, the ones who were too young to fully understand but old enough to feel everything, were being overlooked. Parents were consumed by their own pain. Nurses were focused on the critical cases. The brothers and sisters of the hurt and the lost were wandering the halls like little ghosts. Kate started a small group in the hospital chapel. She called it the Quiet Club. No agenda. No therapy. Just a space where kids could draw, or cry, or throw pillows, or do nothing at all. She showed up every morning at 9 a.m. and stayed until the last child left. She brought crayons and paper and snacks. She let the kids call her Kate, not Your Royal Highness. She let them ask her anything. One little girl asked if the Queen ever got sad. Kate said yes, very sad. The little girl asked if the Queen cried. Kate said, "Everyone cries, sweetheart, even queens." Word began to spread, not through the news, but through the quiet network of human beings. A parent told a neighbor. A nurse told her sister. A chaplain told his congregation. And slowly, people started arriving at the hospital not with cameras, but with offerings. A baker brought fresh bread every morning. A florist left bouquets at the entrance with no name attached. A group of construction workers showed up to fix a broken elevator for free. The grief was still there, thick and suffocating, but now it had company. Now it had hands and feet. On the 6th night, something happened that no one planned. William was walking through the pediatric ward when he heard a sound he had been dreading, a mother wailing. The kind of wail that comes from a place deeper than lungs, deeper than ribs. A mother had just been told her son would not wake up. William stopped. His security detail tensed. Protocol said to move away, to give the family privacy, to avoid intrusion. But William walked toward the sound. He found the mother in a small consultation room, collapsed on the floor, her body heaving. A nurse was trying to comfort her, but the nurse was crying too. William knelt down. He didn't speak. He didn't touch her. He just knelt there, a few feet away, his head bowed. After a long time, the mother looked up. She saw him. She didn't say, "Thank you." She didn't say, "Go away." She just looked. And William looked back. And in that wordless exchange, something passed between them. Recognition, not of rank or title, but of shared humanity. She reached out her hand. He took it. They stayed like that until the sun came up. The next morning, Kate found William sitting alone in the hospital garden, staring at a bare tree. She sat down beside him. "I don't know how to do this," he said quietly. "I don't know how to hold that much pain and not break." Kate leaned her head on his shoulder. "Maybe that's the point," she said. "Maybe we're supposed to break a little. Maybe that's how we let the light in." They stayed in Liverpool for 2 more weeks. They missed royal engagements. They missed their children's school plays. They missed the comfort of their own bed. But they didn't miss a single day at the hospital. And somewhere in the middle of all that breaking, the nation began to notice. Not because the palace issued a press release, but because a father named Mark wrote a letter to a local newspaper. It was short. It said, "The prince held my hand. Not because he had to, because I needed him to. That's not royalty. That's love." The letter went viral. Not the usual kind of viral. Not memes or outrage, but the quiet kind. The kind where people share something because it makes them feel less alone. Within hours, The hashtag thank you William and Kate was trending. But William and Kate didn't see it. They were too busy making tea for the night nurses. Part 3, 2,500 words, expandable. By the third week, something unexpected had happened. The hospital was still a place of grief, but it was no longer a place of isolation. The media had come and gone. The politicians had made their speeches and moved on to the next crisis. But William and Kate remained. Their presence had shifted from news to normal. They were no longer visitors. They were part of the furniture, the good kind, the kind that holds you up when you're too tired to stand on your own. Dr. Sharma called them into her office one afternoon. She looked different now, less haunted, more determined. "I need to tell you something," she said. "After the first week, we had 7 nurses resign. They couldn't take the trauma. But after you started coming, after you sat with them, ate with them, cried with them, not one more nurse has quit. Not one." She paused, her voice cracking. "You didn't give a single speech about mental health. You just showed up. And that did more than any campaign ever could." William didn't know what to say. He looked at Kate. She had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. "That's not us," Kate said softly. "That's them. They're the strong ones. We just sat down next to them." But the truth was more complicated. The truth was that William and Kate had done something radical. They had broken the unspoken rule that royals must remain above the fray, untouched by the messiness of ordinary pain. They had gotten dirty. They had gotten tired. They had gotten sad. And in doing so, they had given the nation permission to do the same. The tipping point came on a Tuesday. A national day of remembrance had been declared. A ceremony was planned in London, with world leaders and celebrities and a military flyover. William and Kate were expected to attend. Their advisors called repeatedly. "You have to come," one said. "This is a historic moment. The whole world will be watching." William listened patiently, then asked a question. "Who will be at the hospital?" The advisor was confused. "What do you mean?" William said. "On the day of the big ceremony. Who will be with the families who can't travel? Who will sit with the children who are still in intensive care? Who will hold the hands of the parents who are burying their kids that same afternoon?" The advisor had no answer. So William and Kate made their choice. They stayed in Liverpool. On the day of the grand memorial, they were in a small hospital chapel with 12 families who had lost children. There were no cameras, no speeches, no flyovers, just a quiet service led by a hospital chaplain who was barely holding himself together. Kate read a poem, not a famous one, but a simple one she had found in a used bookstore years ago, about how grief is not a hole, but a river, and how rivers eventually find the sea. William lit a candle for each child. He didn't rush. He didn't check his watch. He lit 73 candles, one by one, and after each one, he whispered the child's name. He had memorized every single one. After the service, a mother named Claire approached them. Her daughter, Mia, had been one of the first to die. Claire hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. She had stopped eating. She had stopped sleeping. She had stopped living. But that day, she walked up to William and Kate and said, "I want you to know something. When I got the news about Mia, I wanted to die too. I didn't see the point. But then I saw you two on the news, not giving speeches, just sitting in that waiting room, looking as lost and broken as the rest of us. And I thought, if they can be that broken and still get up in the morning, maybe I can too." She paused, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "So I'm still here. Because of you." Kate pulled her into a hug that lasted a long, long time. That moment, that single, unscripted, unguarded moment, became the story. Not because anyone filmed it, but because Claire told her sister, and her sister told a friend, and the friend wrote a post that was shared 1,000,000 times. It said, "Royalty is not about crowns. It's about crouching down to look a broken mother in the eye and saying without words, 'I am broken too.'" The nation's tears did not stop, but they changed. They were no longer just tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of recognition, of release. People started talking about their own grief, old grief, buried grief, grief they had been carrying alone for years. A man in Manchester wrote to William, saying he had lost his brother in a car accident a decade ago and had never spoken about it. After seeing William sit with the Liverpool families, he finally told his wife. A teenager in Birmingham started a support group for young people who had lost siblings. A grandmother in Cornwall knitted 73 blankets and sent them to the hospital, one for each child's family. William and Kate finally returned to Kensington Palace after 23 days. Their children ran to them at the door, wrapping small arms around legs, asking why they had been gone so long. William picked up Lewis and held him tight. Kate knelt down to show Charlotte the drawing Jacob had made, a much better dog this time, with all 4 legs and a wagging tail. That night, after the children were asleep, William and Kate sat on the floor of their empty nursery, surrounded by toys and half-finished puzzles. They didn't talk about the hospital. They didn't talk about the future. They just sat, holding hands, letting the silence be enough. But the silence didn't last. The next morning, William picked up his phone and called the Prime Minister. He didn't ask for money or statues or laws. He asked for one thing: a national network of quiet rooms in every hospital, every school, every police station, a place where anyone could go to break down without being seen. "We don't need more speeches," he said. "We need more chairs, more tables, more permission to be human." The Prime Minister, for once, had nothing clever to say. He just said yes. And so, out of the ashes of tragedy, something new was built. Not a monument, not a holiday. Something quieter and more lasting. 1,000 small rooms across the country, each one with a chair, a box of tissues, and a sign that said, "You are not alone." The first one opened at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, in the corner of the basement where the janitor Terry used to go to cry. They named it the Kate and William Room, over their objections. But they didn't fight it too hard, because deep down, they knew the truth. Sometimes the most royal thing you can do is sit on a dirty floor and hold a stranger's hand. The nation never forgot. Not the tragedy, not the tears, but also not the 2 people who chose to stop, to stay, and to simply be there. In a world that constantly tells us to look away, William and Kate taught a wounded country how to look toward each other. And that, more than any crown or castle, is the legacy that lasts.